So as I earlier said that there are increasing number of food safety incidences world over. Globally, the number of food safety issues are arising. So we need to look at this debate or this discussion that who is actually responsible for food safety, because whenever there is a breach of food safety, it would be an offense and somebody has to be responsible for that. So we need to fix the responsibility for making the safe food. So there are various players for making food safe. We'll discuss this thing now, that who is actually responsible for food safety. So the overall responsibility lies with many organizations. For example, food industry sectors. They are the one who are primarily responsible for making safe food. Another responsibility, or the nexus of responsibility, lies with the regulatory authorities, because it is the government's responsibility again to provide safe, healthy, and nutritious food to its population. So it is a legal responsibility on the government, and it is also legal and moral responsibility on the producer as well to produce food which is safe for the end user. And the third pillar of this nexus is consumer themselves. So consumer are again, they are also responsible for food safety as well. So let's talk about the food industry first. As I earlier said, that it is not only the legal but also moral responsibility of food producer to produce food which is safe for the end user, and it meets all the requirements that are set by the government or by the producer themselves to produce food which is safe to be consumed by the end user. So if we go within this food production unit maybe, or a food industry, then who is more responsible for food safety? So I would say that these are the top management which is responsible to develop systems within the food manufacturing units or food industries to actually make sure that the product that they are making, it meets the regulatory requirements and the safety requirements. So it would be the top management which is more responsible for the actions that may not be taken by them, that has led to an unsafe food getting into the population and making people sick or vulnerable. On the other hand, as I said, the governments are also again very much responsible to make sure that the industries and the manufacturing units, they all run according to the specified standards by the government and the regulatory agencies. And once they meet all those standards, then it's the government responsibility that they set such standards, they implement such standards, and monitor that the organizations are meeting those standards, so that the food that is getting into the palate of a consumer, it is all safe and healthy and nutritious. So it is also the responsibility of government that not only to protect this consumer from getting sick or having food in safety incidents, but also they should make sure that the consumer is not deceived. There is no fraud that is happening. There is no mislabeling that is happening. There is no misrepresentation of food that is happening, because this is a very, food fraud is a very, again, it's a global phenomena. It happens with most of the food products as well worldwide. And if the governments do not take strict actions, then there are higher number of food fraud incidences that would take place in a country. So that means that the government is again responsible if there are food frauds happening and they are not monitoring, or if they are not setting standards or setting examples to actually curb those incidences where the misrepresentation, mislabeling, fraud is actually stopped by the government agencies. The government would, of course, have different agencies, such as the regulatory agencies, to enforce these standards which are made by these governments. And they have to maintain that legal framework. They have to make the legal framework. They have to monitor, as I said, and they must be able to take actions if these food safety characteristics or requirements are not met by any producer. So these are the government's role, and their established regulatory bodies. They are directly responsible for making food safe to the end user. So if we talk about the food supply chain, as I said, that food supply chain is a complex supply chain. It involves a lot of steps involved. There may be a lot of variables. The food pathogens or food hazard might get into food from various sources. So again, everybody is responsible in a sense that everybody would have some role to reduce the food safety hazards in their own domain. For example, if a person is responsible for buying the raw material, or they're responsible for to buy ingredients or packaging material, food contact packaging material or instruments, then they are responsible for this fact that they should make the sound decisions that do not lead to the food safety problems at the end. So as I said, that these consumers or the customers, they are again responsible for this, that they have to make the right choices so that the food that is reaching to the end consumer is safe in all aspects. Then the customer or the end user, they are also responsible in a way that they must look at the instructions and the labels, the handling procedures, and the preparation or use of tools. They again can be, they can play their part in making food unsafe as well. For example, if the food is not stored well, if it's not stored under suitable temperature condition or pH or atmospheric humidity or other factors, then even if the produce have been produced according to the set standards by a producer, but when it goes to the kitchen of a final end user and they do not handle it properly, they still cause disease, they can still cause food safety incidences. So this how the end user is also responsible, the consumer is also responsible. So at the end, I would say that it's everybody's responsibility, but the great burden of responsibility would stand with the producer, with the government, with the agencies, and at the end, it's the consumer. So whenever there's an incident, we have to look at the investigations that what has caused a food safety hazard and who was responsible for making that food hazard. So the burden could shift in certain cases as well when there are investigations carried out to look at the exact reason for any breach of food safety matters in case of foods.